Welcome to the Voice of San Diego podcast in partnership with News Radio 600 Kogo. I am Scott Lewis, the CEO and editor-in-chief at Voice of San Diego. And coming up on the show today, the South Bay County Supervisor runoff is set. 2 mayors will race for the future of the county. Nothing short of the entire future of the county is at stake, and we will try to break it down. An effort to set aside an area for homeless residents in their vehicles near the airport has hit yet another snag as the developer of Liberty Station takes the city to court. And the U.S. Secretary of Education was in town. Jakob, went to see her. All that and another Dear VOSD coming up. I had my first sip of beer in like 12 years the other day with you.
Yeah.
Because we were celebrating our own beer. The 20th anniversary Voice of San Diego beer that 3 Punk Ales has put out. Tell us about it when people can come try it.
It is amazing. First of all, how was that first sip?
It was good. I wanted more.
Refreshing.
But stopped. It was
a work day. We did have to go back to
I
work.
stopped drinking beer when all you could get, it seemed like, was IPAs. Mm-hmm. Like really heavy, just like
soapy.
Dang.
Soapy.
I swear to God, they taste like soap.
It was just heavy stuff, and this was a nice, sharp, refreshing
Mexican lager.
Yeah,
so fresh. I think Bella said it best, that it tasted like what?
I said it tasted like municipal accountability and transparency.
Which is also similar to a Mexican lager.
Yeah, very delicious.
Yeah, so to celebrate our 20th anniversary and the launch of this very special beer, we are having a party, a beer launch party on Thursday, April 24th at 5 p.m. at 3 Punk Ales. That address for the brewery is 259 3rd Avenue, Chula Vista.
Yeah, so at 3 Punk Ales, love that they helped with this. It's a great group. We got to go down and see how it was made. And
we poured the hops.
Yeah. You scraped some refuse.
Yeah, that was fun. It was actually really heavy.
Yeah. It was great, and it's going to be fun. I'm really pleased that they did that. 20 years ago, a lot of people didn't believe Voice of San Diego would make it, and it's a real cool thing that we did. And 3 Punk Ales, they had their doubters too, but they built an organization, and a product and just a community one by one, the same way we have, and with media too, like just an idea that people would appreciate getting to know how their city works and who makes it work, and so it's a good partnership, and I love that they did that. So come have a beer with the reporters, 5 p.m. the 24th in Chula Vista.
Yep.
I'm joined in the studio, as always, by managing editor Andrea Lopez Villafano. What's up, Lopez?
Hey, Lewis.
You drove the ship last week, all right?
I did. It was great.
Good. Jakob McQuinney, our education reporter. Hello, sir.
I really enjoyed the leisurely pace with which you delivered that intro.
Yeah, thanks.
It was quite a breath of fresh air there.
I don't race through anything.
Oh, okay.
That's my normal thing.
So it wasn't out of spite. It was just kind of normally what you do.
Wasn't taking feedback at all.
Okay.
And social media producer Bella Ross is here. What's up, Bella?
Hi, Scott.
How's the fandom and such?
The fandom?
The rise to prominence.
They're, I've kept them waiting.
Yeah.
Really.
I'm a little out of it. I spent the morning speaking to middle school students. I did 4 different sessions where I gave the same speech and sort of storytelling the whole time. And I gave it every ounce of energy I could. And all these middle school's experiences are the same for me. There's always 10% of the class that's engaged, participating, really grokking the moment, and it's fun to, really interact with them. 80% of the students are distracted, insecure, maybe paying attention, hard to say. And then another 10% that might be kind of disruptive, right? Just kind of not deliberately trying to make it clear that they don't care what you are doing. And maybe they do care so much that they're doing that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I found the whole thing very, very tiring.
I spoke to middle schoolers once, and I vowed never to do it again. I wanted to cry.
It's rough. Like, none of my jokes were landing.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I'm used to these member coffees where people are just rolling
Yeah, yesterday, right?
with my jokes. Like,
you went from like a high to a super low.
That's my crowd. And then
it's tough when you're used to communicating with a certain kind of person. It's very difficult to then communicate to like a bunch of half people, you know? I had that experience when I did a career fair at Edison Elementary, and I was just not the kind of like career that kids were interested. There were like firefighters there. The kids were trying on like firefighter helmets.
You can't beat that.
Yeah, it was very hard. I did, one kid drew a picture of me and they sent it to me, and that was very...
That's nice.
Was it good?
Cool. Well, it's my
Slack photo.
My Slack
photo. Oh, I didn't know that's what that was. It's really good, by the way.
Yeah. Kind of stubby arms, but I appreciate it.
I asked everybody there if there was like, if they had a favorite. And, of the careers that the last session I asked it, and one of them was like, well, the saxophonist was awesome. And I was like, what?
Damn, you got beat out by a saxophone.
And then this other girl was like, well, the Navy SEAL was good, but the Green Beret was better.
What?
Damn.
Their power ranking, like special operations units.
And I was like, well, I can explain property taxes. I gave them like a whole thing about why their school was getting rebuilt, but they were still in danger of losing certain programs and stuff. The construction bonds and all that. I thought they'd be really, really intrigued by that. And
you were
Scott,
wrong.
You can't play Careless Whisper, and you can't parachute behind enemy lines. So, I mean, you're kind of at a disadvantage here.
I don't know. I feel like journalist is... Like, I guess when you get older, you realize that it's like immensely cooler than most office jobs.
No, they were kind of, they were into it. It was, I mean, I really did my best to engage them on some of the coolest stories we've done.
Did you tell them you were on TV?
Yeah, I kept doing the joke like, oh, I was on the radio today, no big deal. And they were like, none of them.
Yeah,
none
of
the
them,
radio.
No, none of them listened to the radio.
None of them cracked a smile at all, though. I was just like really hamming it up. It's like, just give me one. Just a little crack of a smile. Nothing. All right, let's get into this. We have our regular segment, Dear VOSD. We have another entry from a reader, and we have a response from our own investigative reporter, Will Huntsberry. Took a little detour from his investigation so that he could answer this question. Let's play the question and get to Will. Hey, Will.
What's up?
All right. Dear VOSD.
Hi, my name's Luis, and I live in City Council District 4, and I wanted to know what the correct number of City Council districts is. San Diego started with 8, is currently at 9, and would love to know if the podcast has ideas on what is the correct number.
Will, you got assigned this question. Thank you for the question. What do we think?
Well, first off, we need to correct our caller, despite their awesome call, which we appreciate. The city did not start out with 8. The city started out with a 7-member council in the 1931 City of San Diego Charter.
Yeah, that was the big redesign of how the city government worked back then when they got the city manager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was 6 council members and a mayor. We didn't have the strong mayor back then. Then we moved it up to 8 in 1963.
8 just seems like clearly the wrong. Why would you choose an even number?
No, it was 8 plus the mayor.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. So we still had the weak mayor, and then it wasn't till about 2010. Was that when it changed, Scott?
2004 was the vote. 2006 was when it was implemented.
Yeah, we got strong mayor in 2004. So once you took the mayor off the council, you did only have 8 members, which did lead to split votes, and then they had to add another one, which is why we have 9 now.
After the 2010 census and redistricting, they added the 9th. Yeah, it was
about 6-7 years there where they just had 8 council members. Was that a huge problem?
No, it was something, but it wasn't that big a deal. I remember. It was something, but I don't remember anything getting really held up.
Right. And so I think the heart of this question is like, what is the most representative number? Like, is there an ideal number of people for a representative to represent? What have you found out?
Yeah, so a few things to say on this question, but just starting with the numbers. Lucky enough for us, the independent budget analysts did a report on this in 2023, and they dug really into it at the request of the council president at the time, Sean Elo Rivera. And so they compared San Diego to a lot of other cities. And, you know, the bottom line is kind of in California, we're not doing so great for representation in our council districts. But nationwide, we're pretty comparable to other cities. What you find when you start looking into this, like how many people should a council person represent, it is just all over the place across the country. And bigger cities certainly tend to have, less council members representing more people. You know, you think about the number of cities here in San Diego County. There are plenty with the same size councils or more or less the same size council as San Diego, and yet we have all these people. California, we have the second worst representation to Los Angeles. Los Angeles has the worst representation.
So how many people does each Los Angeles City Council person?
250,000.
That sounds like a lot.
Yes, for us,
It's like a congressional district.
But then there are 15 city council members.
Exactly. So they have more than us, but still. And then we're at 150,000.
Okay, so each city council person represents 100,000 people less than Los Angeles.
Totally. San Francisco looking better. They've got 11 council members, about 73,000 residents per. Long Beach looking great, 50,000 residents per. So that's kind of California. On the national stage, you have Los Angeles still looking pretty bad across the country. Houston has added seats, but still has worse representation to us. They were one of the more recent cities to add seats, the report found. And they actually had an automatic mechanism built into their city charter. When population reaches X, you can add seats. We don't have that. Most cities don't have that. But it is an option that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting that there's not like a widely recommended like ratio, at least, like you would see in like schools or like congressional districts and like things like that.
You would think, right? You would think. Also, interestingly, Chicago doing great. They have 50 council members.
What?
50,000 people per. Chicago, very highly representative city for their city council.
So Chicago has the same amount of city council people as the United States has, I guess not. The United States has 100 senators.
I believe they say aldermen.
That's just.
Thank you. Okay, fair enough. I'm hoping we weren't going to get fact checked on that. But
alder people.
Well, doesn't Chicago have like a crazy mayoral system?
To your question, Bella, about like why. You would have thought that there might be some law on this. There is not. The Supreme Court has weighed in on it adjacently. They haven't said anything about the number of people that can be represented per representative, but they have said that all the districts have to be within like 10% standard deviation. Mm-hmm. So you can't have one district where 500,000 people are represented and another district where only 200,000 are. That there could be like a successful legal challenge on.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I mean, and one of the interesting things about this is the more city council people there are, the kind of weaker each city council person is, but the more powerful each citizen's voice is, you would imagine, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that gets into some really interesting points that the independent budget analysts made in their report. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to think that it would be a good thing to increase the number of seats. You could have more diverse you would likely have more diverse representation on the council if you did that. And also, if we had smaller districts, the council offices would likely be able to be more responsive to their constituents, the independent budget analysts found. as well as that, they thought it would increase public participation because you'd have smaller districts with less doors to knock on the campaign, and essentially people campaigning for that seat would more easily be able to activate everybody in that district. The downsides they found had to do with like concentration of power. So presumably the larger a body gets, the more unwieldy that body gets. But they did say that, you know, it creates opportunities for strong leadership or something like that, right?
I think one of the biggest, so whenever they switched to the district elections as opposed to the at-large city elections, so you used to be at-large and then they switched to the individual districts, and the only real downside to that is kind of significant in the sense that there's literally no city council member who cares about the whole city, right? Like there's they know that their power is derived only from that district, and thus like the actual like large city as a whole issues, from water to infrastructure as a whole to deficits and funding and all that are limited because they only care about whether their actual district loves them. And I would assume if you add even more districts, that would get even like more concentrated, localized, as opposed to anybody caring about even like beyond their own little neighborhood corners.
Sure. I mean, another potential positive, though, is that you could have more diverse opinions on the council, more robust debate, and you could achieve that if we added a couple of at-large seats, right? And so that's what some cities do. We could keep all the district elections we currently have, but then we could add 2 at-large seats where those people are elected citywide.
Those poor Republicans could get a shot again, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know about all that.
It seems unlikely.
So were there any recommendations that the independent budget analyst made in that report?
Not really. I think they just wanted to put the information out there for an informed debate, and then this kind of hasn't gone anywhere else. This was talked about during redistricting a few years ago. It was written. We wrote about it at Voice of San Diego. Some people, a lot of advocates involved in the process, wanted more seats. Interestingly, a few people involved in the process who were people of color were saying they actually wanted to go back to at-large across the whole city, because originally you had in districts across California, across the country, when you have at-large elections, you are more likely to get white people elected pretty much throughout the country. And that's been an issue in Fallbrook and other places around here, even in very recent years. But some advocates were saying a couple years ago, we if you're not going to give us what we want, then let's go back to at large, because now we're a majority community. So let's have them back, baby.
Interesting.
Well, Will, appreciate you tracking that down. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Well, the election happened, and there were a few polls circulating before the election actually ended, and they seem to be right on. Paloma Aguirre destroyed the other Democrats to get into the runoff with John McCann, the mayor of Chula Vista. Paloma Aguirre is the Imperial Beach mayor, so we have 2 mayors fighting for the big open seat, the County Board of Supervisors. There are 2 Democrats on the County Board of Supervisors, 2 Republicans. There is a lot at stake. They have very different philosophies about housing, about public safety, about unions and Medicaid, and all the kinds of things that the Board of Supervisors deal with. And this is a big, this is a big one. Then this is going to be a big scorched earth fight, I think. Now, John McCann, I think, is the underdog, has to be the Republican. There are so many more Democrats in the district, but he's like the one who could do it, it seems like.
Yeah, he's a mayor of a city where, I think Jim wrote Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1 or something like that. So he's won elections, and he was on the city council before that. So if anyone could do it, I don't know. What did Jakob say last week?
McCann can.
Oh my gosh.
That was terrible.
Especially after we did that analysis with Public Matters KPBS showing how that district had moved to the right as of last November. But then a lot's happened since last November. We'll see if people like feel that like, oh, maybe that wasn't the right choice. I think that this will tell us a lot about where the community stands.
Right. And District 1 includes city of Imperial Beach, southern San Diego neighborhoods, National City, and of course the city of Chula Vista. It's the biggest city in that district.
I mean, we've talked a lot in the past about how local Republican figures have been tied to national Republican figures. I remember during the November election, driving down the 8, you saw the big billboard of Kevin Faulconer with Donald Trump. What do you think there's going to be an effort to tie?
Yeah, it doesn't
McCann?
take much. They'll find anything that McCann has said or done.
Top layer Google search for images of John McCain with Donald Trump. Not seeing anything. You have to really get in the internet trenches.
No, there'll be something like he went to some party that celebrated. That's all that takes. Like he went to a party celebrating Trump's election or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's all. Like it just they'll be like, oh, like him near some cutout or something. Yeah. Or
they're gonna find a picture of him standing next to the guy in the wall suit.
Yeah. Or there'll be like a moment where he's like. They're like, do you like Trump? And he'll be like, well, I don't like Trump's policies I like his policies. I don't like his things. And then they'll edit it and be like, I like Trump. Anyway, yeah, it'll be very much, the Democrats will very much try to turn that into, I think, a referendum on that sort of stuff. And we'll see, that's probably pretty strong. I would have to say the decks are stacked hard against him, but again, he is really good at doing that. So I'm not sure what'll happen. The housing issues we've talked about. There was just a vote last week about expanding the legal program to help immigrants that went down at the County Board of Supervisors, and I think I would like to ask both of them what they would have done if they had that vote, because it basically went down because there was not enough on either side to make that happen. Those kinds of questions, I think, are going to be big ones. And they still keep punting around the idea of delaying the county budget or otherwise allowing the budget to change after this person is elected. Mm-hmm. And that'll be interesting to watch, too.
The thing is, like, if they are so split, how are they going to get it done anyways?
Yeah, well,
deals?
Yeah, they're going to have to talk and make compromises maybe, and
yeah.
You're gonna have to do some politics.
Yeah, exactly.
Put him in work.
Joel Anderson makes deals. That's his deal. Like he loves getting a little something for working with the Democrats, and so he can make something like that happen.
Right.
But they really want to do it. So I think the only last thing I'd say is Vivian Moreno, why she did so poorly in this race. She had a lot of independent money come in for her. She arguably represents a larger district, has been around in politics longer, has a lot of support. What happened there? The only thing I can think is, she sees herself as this maverick on the San Diego City Council, as like a real, like she is always opposing things, water rate increases, or these hires that the mayor always makes to these middle management positions, all kinds of stuff like that. So Vivian Moreno really crafted this like idea that she was this maverick, and she really did have this kind of, just an alternative Democratic kind of position, and she was super pro housing, and she really did stand out that way, but she never really took advantage of the platform she had to really make a personality for herself, a prominence for herself in the community. I don't think people were aware. I don't think she used all the levers that council members have to speak to the entire community as often as she could. Compare that to like a Shani La Rivera, or obviously he was council president, but there's all these people who can make a difference if they stand out. They go on the radio shows, they go on the podcasts, they just go on the effort to really try to frame city issues. She just never did that.
Or like Paloma Aguirre, for that matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Constantly seeing her on like Instagram and all over the place. Like, I am at the Tijuana River. I am in all these places. Just like very public personality.
Yeah, really working hard to shape what she wants to see out of the region all the time, and communicating that, and like using that free media that can come.
Do you think Vivian was punished by voters in her district for her proximity to the floods?
obviously didn't help, but I think it seems like one of those races where you look back and it's just baked in. Like this was where these people were going to be from the moment the election started, and it must do like I don't know if these consultants look at this sometimes and be like, what are we even doing? Like because there's not much tweaking after this. Like it was pretty hard set.
That and the fact that not a lot of people voted in this.
Yeah. Well, I think more than like we might have thought, right? I think it's going to get close to 20% turnout.
That's not so bad.
Like, I mean, New York sometimes has like, 9% or something on these special election times. Like, I'll take that. I mean, it's not great, but it's about 60-something thousand out of 300-something thousand. That's not so bad.
But it would be interesting to see like the number of people in her district, in her council district, who went out to vote. Like I looked at the map and I was like, wow, only 94 people in my neighborhood voted.
So the early numbers show that Paloma Aguirre beat her in her district.
Oof.
Ooh.
It's unfortunate.
That's harsh.
The mailers were intense, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. We'll have to do some door knocking.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned. We will be doing our own, hopefully get some debates and discussions and all kinds of stuff. We got some time to investigate some of their background, some of their plans, and we'll be here to talk about it.
What's the next date we should be looking for?
That's a good question. July 1st is the actual end of the special election voting, and, we'll get some stuff going before then. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We talked recently about the trash fee that single-family homeowners and renters are going to have to pay to have the city come and collect their trash, and the little chips that are going to be in the containers. Let's go first to the fee. We all were a little bit surprised at how much the city was going to charge. It was what?
50 something?
Yeah, 53 or something.
53 sounds right.
Yeah, they've announced that it's going to be like 47 now or something, right? Like, we talked about, it did seem like a jarringly high like jump because they had said when the vote happened a couple of years ago that they estimated it would be about $27 to $35 or something, and so to jump up that soon, that was a little bit of a shock. Now they explained it. This is another thing I found out. They explained it that they needed to charge more because they're offering more services that people wanted. This free bin replacement. And, a bulk item. Remember, I was very excited about the bulk items removal and a few other things like that. Well, I found out this week that they're not doing any of that stuff for a few years.
What?
And so they're just charging the higher fee just because they want to
without giving the additional perks.
Yeah. And they're going to do the perks later, but then the fee's going to go up too. And so they're just
then
charging.
That doesn't include the perks. You can't say it
Very
includes
misleading.
the perks.
Right? Like I feel like even I get pulled into like just listening to what people say and not like questioning it deeper, and I just get punished.
When you believe them outright.
Yeah.
You're just gonna have to walk around questioning everyone. This lower amount was just insane to me. We were talking about it. We had a member coffee event. We were talking about this, and we were saying how maybe they may propose something lower or whatever. And then right after we left our event, I got a news alert from the UT about this lower fee, and I was like, "Wow, Scott Lewis manifested it." And then I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh."
That's such like a small difference, like anybody who's actually paying it. But then like for the city who's like collecting the money, like that's like
million.
A big
that's
difference.
a huge difference.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. They are going to they a lot of the reason they have to do this is they are going to try to make sure they get better trucks, that they get some staff in place so they can deliver the service better, because when people start paying, they're going to start being a little more pissed about things not working well. And so I do understand some of the costs there. Now, this is the proposal from the staff. The city council could adopt something different or somehow choose a different option, and it's up in the air. Now, we did also talk a few weeks ago about the chips, the RFID tags that will be in the containers, and you said, well, you should do a post on it. So we had our intern Alina Ajaz look into this and ask the city. And at first the city's like, yeah, we don't know what you're talking about, right? Or like, leave us alone, kind of.
They just sent us a link to frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
Really?
No, we have questions that aren't frequently asked because that's who we are, right? And so they did give us a little bit more about the RFID tag is embedded in the container itself. It's not a tag that's visible, so you won't know where it is. So don't monkey with it. Each container would have a unique RFID assigned to it. The city's database will maintain a record of customer container assignments. Now, Alina asked them, like, who's going to have access to this data? Where's this data going? And they're like, yeah.
We don't have that answer.
We don't have that answer. They said that, quote, the RFIDs do not track anything, but the readers will be able to record which containers were collected. So if the city learns that a particular truck's load contains hazardous materials, the city will know which containers were picked up as long as those containers had working RFIDs and as long as the truck's reader detected the RFID when the container was emptied. So it's not that they can tell what's in the container, but they can very quickly track what time a container was dumped. So they could track back what.
Didn't they start the statement with, we're not tracking anything?
Yeah.
We're not tracking anything, but we will be tracking some stuff.
Yeah. Next thing you know, they're listening to everything and reading all your like junk mail, right?
Right.
I'm sorry. I hate to joke about surveillance thing. I know the city's sensitive about that, but let's see. The trucks will have RFID readers, and the reader will be placed in a location on the truck such that when the truck lifts and empties the container, the truck will automatically detect the RFID within the container and confirm the specific container was lifted and emptied.
Science.
Fascinating.
Okay.
Done.
Are you guys comfortable with smart trash containers?
Smart trash cans.
I'm not really comfortable with smart anything now. I mean, they're like, microwaves that you can go on Twitter on, and this all just seems very distressing to me.
What?
You haven't seen these things? They're literally like fridges and microwaves.
Oh, you can tweet from the microwave.
Yes.
Oh, okay, because you need to do that a lot?
Apparently
it's become such a thing that I actually read a headline today in the Taylor Lorenz newsletter that like rich people are seeking out what they call quote unquote dumb homes instead of smart homes that like have basic appliances that you can't tweet from because that's just out of touch, obviously.
I think that many of the things in our lives have become too smart. I don't want my microwave to be perceiving me. I'd prefer a trash can not perceive me,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But this is basically so they can show, we collected your trash.
Yeah.
Don't tell us that we didn't.
Right.
It feels kind of petty.
Yeah.
Is there,
because they're charging now.
Will there be a punishment for like tampering with your trash can's RFID chip?
I don't know.
You don't even know where it is.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
Somebody's gonna
take apart your trash
like
can.
Autopsy their trash bin to see where
That's
it
like
is.
somebody. It's gonna have to be us.
Let's do it.
Like,
All right, let's cut it there. We had an interesting story this week. So the McMillan family, McMillan built Liberty Station. Remember this, the very basic thing is the city had this military base. My dad went to boot camp at Naval Base, whatever it was, at Liberty Station. My uncle went there. He was there in 1968 when it last snowed in San Diego, and he was at the base there. That's where they had boot camp. The Navy left it, and then basically, it's more complicated than that, but basically gave it to the city, and the city then went out to ask for people to bid on how they would redevelop it. There was one group that sort of won this competition named Lennar, and then there was this other group, McMillan, that wanted it. And there was a big scandal about why McMillan got it, even though the other one was recommended. And that scandal has a little bit of the origin story of Voice San Diego in it. Oh. Because Voice San Diego was like, Neil Morgan was so upset, he was the co-founder of Voice San Diego, about how that process went, that he felt like the newspaper hadn't supported him enough in making the case. And then and that is part of what led him to want to create Voice of San Diego. ironically, within a few years, Voice San Diego had moved to an office in Liberty Station, and it was delightful.
We were born through scandal.
But so
Like,
yeah,
oh, awkward. Hey guys, we need an office.
yeah. But McMillan is running, has made tons of money redeveloping all that area, all the shops, the houses, everything, and now they're trying to block a safe parking site that the city wants to put at the H barracks, which is right next to the airport. Those abandoned buildings that the firefighters use to train and all that stuff. The city has planned for months, years to do something there, and now months to have the safe parking. And a lot of us were kind of looking forward to that because some of the folks that are living in their vehicles across San Diego need a place to go that's more safe, that's better for the whole community. And this was one of those places. And now it's in jeopardy.
I know, and it feels like we've been talking about this for such a long time. I looked at it, and it was like back in 2003 or something like that. But remember, this is for the H Barrack site, and the mayor's office had laid out sort of like a shelter plan, and this was one of the things that they were doing alongside the mega shelter. Obviously, the mega shelter died, and now this is one of the other options. Of course, Point Loma residents were very upset and opposed this project because, they said this is going to bring more homeless people to our community. And yeah, McMillan filed a lawsuit.
But then the mayor compromised and said, okay, fine, we'll just do the safe parking.
Safe parking. And I think often people, when they think of safe parking, it's mostly families or people kind of just moving around in their cars.
I think people who are living in their vehicles are some of the folks that need the most attention as soon as possible because they're clinging to society, right? They're barely holding on. And
you're just one step down.
Yeah,
from being
you
on the
lose
street.
that. You can go to a job if you have your car still. You can go to the gym to get a shower. You can move. You're part of the circulation of life, of society. But the moment you lose that, it's like the rung is so much harder to go up after that, right?
Yeah, I remember I interviewed a family a long time ago. They were living in their car. The father was an attorney. He became really ill, couldn't work anymore, and his wife also lost her job. And yeah, they were just barely hanging on, taking their kids to school, but they could because they had a car and they had a place to park their car at night so they could all get the rest and shower and whatever. But take away that car.
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah. So, but now the city is gonna get that thing done, and these guys are like, no, that's not the deal we made.
Yeah, they filed a lawsuit against the city, basically making several allegations as well as suing the Coastal Commission. And they're alleging that the city failed to get the proper permits and that the Coastal Commission shouldn't have granted this other permit. But McMillan is asking the judge who's overseeing the case to grant an injunction so they don't start on the project at all.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
And their argument is that the city had agreed not to put homeless services in the area back when they made this deal to let McMillan redevelop. And this is what's the city council went out of its way to give this job to McMillan. And now McMillan's okay, thanks for the life-altering generational wealth that this has helped us build, but don't put a homeless service nearby.
And looking at the map, H Barracks is not that close to. I mean, sure, but it's across the kind of canal there.
Well, there's another hotel that they want to build that's a little closer, and I think that's the heart of their concern. But again, I think this is what's so interesting about some of these debates. There's a lot of homeless people around there, and the idea that this creates a homeless people problem near you is just really kind of bananas because there's
it already exists.
At least if this would have parameters around it and security and all that, and to prefer the current sort of anarchy is weird. It's just weird to me, and I get it. You don't want to go down without a fight, but I don't know. I mean, I don't get it, frankly.
Yeah. Mayor Todd Gloria had some spicy quotes. Our Lisa Halverstadt, who wrote the story, reached out to him, and he said, quote, "It is unconscionable that McMillan, a company that has derived considerable financial benefit from nearby public land, is attempting to block our efforts to deploy the city-owned land to help people and improve our community."
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens with that. I think it's yet another example of just people not wanting something nearby to deal with a problem the city's dealing with.
NIMBY strike again.
Jacob, you went down to the convention center for the annual. This last year, we had a lot of fun with the ASU plus GSV Education Summit, where all the innovators in the education space talk about all their new inventions and their new theories and anagrams and all the things that make them excited to tackle the world. And was it the same vibes this year? Was it a different vibe? How the vibes feel?
Yeah, so this year, Will and I both went to the AI show, which happens before the ASU GSV Summit at the convention center. The actual summit is actually at the Grand Hyatt, just around the corner, essentially. And it was quite similar. You know, it is this extremely kind of gaudy, moneyed gathering of people who all want to talk about, you know, their algorithms that can help, develop an IEP for students, or it's just it is kind of the cutting edge of the mixture of education and technology, and some of which feels quite frightening to me, at least. I'm very, very wary of these kinds of silver bullet approaches, right? What we know works is really faithfully implementing proven strategies, and not necessarily, you know, a chat bot that will talk to a student. So it was very similar to last year. It was quite an experience. But this year they had Education Secretary Linda McMahon speak at one of the breakfasts.
And she said, "Don't worry, nothing's going to change. The federal government's just going to keep cooking and providing everything it has."
That's pretty much what she said. I mean, in so many words, she obviously she's been part of Donald Trump's plans to eliminate the Department of Education. That has distressed quite a few people because the Department of Education does a lot of stuff. One of the things that it does is distribute a whole bunch of money across the country that's aimed particularly at a couple populations of students that are pretty high needs. One, Title I funding it goes to schools with high populations of socioeconomically disadvantaged students. They also distribute money to help with special education funding. And with the elimination of the department, there have been plenty of folks who have been really distressed about what happens with that money.
Yeah.
Now, that money is congressionally mandated. It has to go out unless Congress votes to make it not go out.
And Trump would never go against something that Congress has said should happen.
True. He's very much.
He would always faithfully execute what Congress has said should happen.
Yes. He never, muddies the water. He never tries to push the boundary. But in her speech, in her talk at the ASU GSV Summit, Linda McMahon said all of that money would still go out. They would still, distribute Pell Grants. They would still figure out financial aid stuff for college students. It just may happen from somewhere else, right? Before 1979, many of these programs still existed, but they were distributed by different organizations, whether it was HHS or the Department of Labor, stuff like that. And that's basically what she said would happen.
What exactly is the role of the education secretary if there is no Department of Education?
That's a good question, and I don't necessarily know that she knows what that would be. I mean, pretty much what Trump has wanted her to do is to work her way out of a job. Part of what Trump's argument has been is the same thing that we're seeing with Doge and everything else, which is there is a whole bunch of bureaucracy and that is causing waste. We have, and McMahon said as much during her speech, basically that this money should be going to kids and it should not be going to bureaucrats in Washington. Now, one of the important things to note is that those bureaucrats in Washington are the ones who distribute that money. And so all of a sudden throwing these things to bureaucrats in a different department may really make it difficult to ensure that this money does go out. There have been lots of folks who study this stuff and work in education funding who have been extremely worried that there will be, big disruptions to the way that this money goes out. There were a couple other little bits of news that she made during that session. One of them was about NAEP scores. So these are the nation's report card, essentially a federal test that's given to students across the country, fourth and eighth graders. And people were very worried that NAEP was going to go the way of the dinosaurs because of cuts that had been happening in the Department of Education. She said very clearly that not only does she think that NAEP needs to stay, she's told President Trump that, and she thinks that it's needed because states can be manipulative and can kind of fudge their own testing numbers, and this is needed for an apples to apples comparison in terms of how kids are doing in Mississippi versus how they're doing in California.
I'm glad that standardized testing will survive.
Thank God.
Standardized testing will survive it, well, according to her, but there are elements that have been eliminated. I mean, again, many of the folks who work on this stuff were fired already. Yeah. And so, you can pay lip service to the fact that all this stuff is going to stay exactly how it is. But whether it will all stay exactly how it is, I think is still to be seen. One of the interesting things about that she talked about, and this was, as we wrote as Will and I wrote in this piece, this was probably just news, just absolute music to the ears of many of the folks in the audience at ASU GSV. She talked about how as they continue to cut these programs, they may eventually find that they have cut too much, and that is where these ed tech folks would come in. This quote from her: "So many of you sitting in this room who are investing in innovation and in technology and helping develop it and wondering whether or not you should continue to invest in education, this is the time. This is the moment to do that, because as we pull down that bureaucracy, there could be gaps and holes that we need you to fill." And so this is a kind of indication that potentially there will be parts of the federal education structure program system that will be privatized in future generations.
All right. Well, I like this little sub beat of keeping track of the ASU GSV summit every year. There, it does seem like it's like a lot of this stuff. It's not so clear, like black and white. Like liberals did get too obsessed with process and bureaucracy. It does seem like, but is this the way to fix it? And, maybe AI and some things would help in an IEP. Like the IEPs are crazy difficult to pull together, but is this the right group to do it? It's like, that's how education is the whole way. Like it's all back and forth. So thank you for keeping track of it. If you have a question for us, or even just a comment, or, you want to say something nice about one of the hosts, you can call the Dear VOSD hotline at 619-800-4669. That's 619-800-4669. Leave a message and we will listen to it and maybe respond to it on the show. Thanks for listening to the Voice of San Diego podcast, the most popular public affairs podcast recorded in San Diego. In fact, the most popular public affairs podcast recorded in San Diego. That will have Congressman Mike Levin on the show next week to talk about some of the stuff happening nationally. It's the most popular public affairs podcast that will have that. I'm Scott Lewis, CEO and editor-in-chief at Voice of San Diego. Andrea Lopez Villafana is our managing editor. Jacob McQuinn is our education reporter. Bella Ross is social media queen. And Xavier Vasquez is our producer of the show. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.